Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video for today, Wednesday, May 29th. If you're joining me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they ultimately end up turning out. After that, we'll get moved over to the weather report and talk about any games on the main slate that do have a double-digit chance of rain. And then after that, we'll get moved over to FanDuel, talk about my core picks for today. It's going to be based on a combination of past performance versus their respective opponent, as well as some recent history. Today, it's going to be a little bit more focused on the recent history, though, just since there wasn't as many guys that stood out based on past performance. And then after that, we'll get moved over to my cheat sheet and talk about my top GPP teams to stack for tonight's slate overall. That cheat sheet is 100% free, and it is up on the Sports Affiliation website, so definitely be sure to check it out over there as you're building out your lineups for tonight's slate. But without further ado, we'll get into the recap of yesterday's picks. At the pitcher position, we were with Cole Reagans. He was $10,600, only got 27 points, so it did ultimately end up giving him a push. Wasn't anybody that really killed our lineups, but wasn't anybody that helped at the same time. Obviously, we were looking for closer to 40 points. Unfortunately, it was probably one of the lesser starts for him this season. He only ended up pitching 5 innings, gave up 9 hits and 3 earned runs. Still had 7 strikeouts, I believe only 1 walk, so could have been a lot worse, but also could have been better at the same time. If you went $200 more to Zach Wheeler, that ended up being pretty good. Ben Brown, I know, pitched pretty good yesterday. I think Max Fried did as well. So there was a lot of pretty good pitching on yesterday's slate just in general. And then next up, we had Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. You could play him at second base, shortstop, third base, or outfield, $2,600. Got to 15.7 points, so he was ahead. He was a really good value play overall. 1 for 4 yesterday, scored a run, had an RBI, and a walk as well. And then at shortstop, we went with Anthony Volpe at $3,000. Got to 6 points, 2 for 5 yesterday, so did ultimately end up giving him a push. He was not a guy that helped our lineups really, but wasn't a guy that really hurt it at the same time just in general. Griffin Canning actually did pitch a little bit better yesterday versus a pretty good Yankees team, which kind of affected his teammate Aaron Judge as well at $4,600. He only got to 3 points, so he was a mess. 1 for 4 yesterday, unfortunately. And then lastly, we had Julio Rodriguez at $3,300. Got to 13 points, so to give him a hit. He was 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs yesterday, so a pretty solid day all around for him. So a little bit of hit or miss in terms of the plays yesterday. If you went with a similar core, if you swapped over to like Zach Wheeler, you still had a chance of cashing, which was something that I did do myself personally. Since him and Cole Reagans were pretty similar in price tag, just felt like swapping those guys out. And the Zach Wheeler line actually doubled up. The Cole Reagans line unfortunately did not end up hitting. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to RotoWire and talk about the weather report for tonight's slate. So for the main slate, we only have one game that does have a double-digit chance of rain. That's out in Colorado between the Rockies and the Guardians. 20% chance of rain out there. Not expecting anything major at this point in time, so should ultimately be able to go off. But obviously out in Colorado, things can kind of change on a dime, so we'll keep an eye out on that as the day moves along. If anything else changes in terms of weather throughout the day for any of these games, we'll leave it down in the comments below. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks over there. So once again, it is going to be 1 pitcher, 4 hitters. Typically, I do a combination of past performance versus their respective opponents, as well as recent history. Today, it's going to be a little bit more focused on the recent history, just based on the past performance that we did have for a lot of these hitters. Obviously, if you're on the Patreon and you're checking out the MLB DFS notes over there, you'll see it's a little bit thinner today. Not a lot of standout guys, and some of the ones that have stand out in their past performances haven't been doing as well as of late. So we're going to start off at the pitcher position with Justin Verlander. He's $9,300. He's averaging about 30 fantasy points per game on the season. He goes against the Seattle Mariners tonight. Mariners offense struggled to start the season. Obviously, starting to get a little bit better as of late, but still striking out at a very high clip. Justin Verlander has 3 wins on the season, a 3.6 ERA, and he is coming off, I believe, the best start of the season for him, where he did have 52 points, 9 strikeouts. That was against the Oakland A's, so you kind of figure that he should do pretty well in that matchup. But with that being said, he does have some pretty good history versus the Seattle Mariners in the past, and the one lone start that he did have against them last year, he had a 55 fantasy point performance, so definitely do like the upside of him tonight overall. Then we're going to move down to our hitters. So first off, we're going to go with Davis Schneider. He is $3,400 now for the Toronto Blue Jays going against the Chicago White Sox tonight. Davis Schneider, you can play at either second base or outfield, so offers a little bit of versatility there. And then if you look at kind of what Davis Snyder's done so far in the season, 255 average, 6 home runs, 27 RBIs, averaging just over 9.5 fantasy points per game. Obviously, he's been doing a little bit better as of late. He's in that leadoff spot now for this Toronto team. And if you look at what he's done lately, 4 out of the last 5 games, he does have at least 1 hit. and there's only one multi-hit game during that span, but 4 of those games have been double-digit performances, and he does have 5 walks during that time span as well. He's a guy that does have a good chance of getting on base, and then usually when he gets on base, decent chance of scoring a run too at that. So definitely do like the upside of him tonight. He does offer a little bit of pop too as well. Doesn't really offer quite as much in that stolen base department, but looks like a pretty solid play tonight. In his career as Chris Flexen, he is 0 for 3, so that's kind of the one downside. But a lot of Blue Jays hitters have done pretty well versus Chris Flexen in the past, so hopefully that trend continues for this lineup tonight. And hopefully that starts with Davis Snyder hitting in that leadoff spot for them once again tonight. And then we're going to go down to Jose Ramirez, $4,800, arguably the highest hitter in all of baseball as of late. He has a .272 average, 16 home runs, 56 RBIs on the season, averaging just over 14.5 fantasy points per game. So he's been doing really well as of late. Obviously, $4,800 is a very, very large price tag. He has at least 1 hit in 7 out of his last games, 5 multi-hit games during that time span, 5 home runs during that time span, and 7 of those games have been double-digit performances. So some pretty strong upside for him. And then at the same time, you got to factor in that this game is being played at Coors Field, so looks like a great matchup for him. Ty Black's on the mound. Not a guy that you're afraid of too much, although Jose Ramirez is 0 for 3 versus him in his career. So like I said, past history is not factoring in quite as much today for these hitters, but we are really chasing some upside, and we're chasing some guys that have been doing really well as of late. And then we move down to Isaiah Kiner-Falefa at $2,600. Going right back to him today. He is our shortstop spot here, but you can play him at second base, third base, shortstop, or outfield. Just kind of happens to best fit at shortstop or outfield with this particular build. .269 batting average, 4 home runs, 15 RBIs. He's averaging just over 6.5 fantasy points per game, and he's $2,600 today. In his career versus Chris Flexen, he is 4 for 13 with 1 home run, so some pretty decent history there. He's on a modest 7-game hitting streak. 3 of those games have been multi-hit games, 2 home runs during that time span, and 4 double-digit performances, including that performance that he did have in our lineups last night. So it looks like a really solid player. Once again, offers some versatility at a reasonable price tag, which is something we definitely need since we are paying up for Jose Ramirez in this lineup as well. And then last but not least, we have Adam Duvall here at $2,900. .213 batting average, 5 home runs, 13 RBIs. Another guy that's averaging just over 6.5 fantasy points on the season. But you have to keep in mind, some of those games he wasn't started and he came in late, or, he pinch hit or something like that. So that is going to bring that fantasy points per game down. Obviously, he wasn't getting regular playing time, but now with Ronald Acuna missing, he is pretty much going to be an everyday starter. So definitely do like that upside. He's on a modest 4-game hitting streak. He's got 2 home runs during that time span. The one downside for him today goes against Mackenzie Gore. He's a left-handed pitcher, and Duvall typically it's left-handed pitching pretty well. He is 0 for 4, however, versus Mackenzie Gore in his career. So that's the one detriment here. But if you look at him being on this hot streak as of late with the 2 home runs, the power is really surging. He's got an OPS over 1,000 on the season versus left-handed pitchers, and all 5 of his home runs this season have come against left-handed pitchers. So definitely do like that upside out of him tonight at $2,900. Reasonable price tag there as well. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do currently have listed here, you have $12,000 exactly remaining, $3,000 per player. So looking a little bit more like a balanced build the rest of the way, but if you have some strong feelings about any of the cheaper guys today, definitely can mix and match them in. Obviously, we have a little bit of versatility here with Davis Snyder and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. So I have a couple different ways that you can build out your lineups for tonight overall. Obviously, if there's a core pick that you don't like here whatsoever, feel free to switch it out because, like I said, not too much history on today's slate, so definitely feel free to mix and match as you do see fit. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to my cheat sheet and talk about my top GPP teams to stack for tonight's slate overall. So once again, there's not a lot of history on tonight's slate, so we're getting to some teams that maybe we don't get to quite as often. But we got Toronto Blue Jays. They are a team that's really struggled on offense so far this year, starting to turn it up just a little bit as of late. But they're going against Chris Flexen tonight. A lot of their hitters have hit him really well in the past, whether that's Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, whether that's Justin Turner, who has 1 career at bat versus him, but it was a home run. George Springer's hit him pretty well, but Springer's really struggled. I know he's got 2 back-to-back multi-hit games, so he was a guy I really debated in my core picks today just in general. Bo Bichette's really struggled to start the year, but 3 for 10 with a home run versus Chris Flexen in his career. And then Danny Jansen, 2 for 6 with a home run versus Chris Flexen in his career. So a lot of guys that have homered off him in the past. And then we got the Cleveland Guardians going against Ty Black out in Colorado today. Obviously, Coors Field's going to be in full effect for that game. Ty Black, he's just kind of been one of these guys that's really bounced around the majors. Sometimes as a reliever, sometimes as a starter. Not too effective at either one, though. So I do like the Guardians once again. They did put it up pretty big for Hornets last night as well. And then we have the Kansas City Royals going against Bailey Ober. Bailey Ober's been a little bit more hit or miss, but he is an extreme fly ball pitcher. He's a guy that's not going to grab too many strikeouts just in general. The Royals have hit him pretty well in the past. A lot of their guys have hit home runs versus him. I believe it's Bobby Witt, Michael Garcia, Kyle Isbell, and I think Salvador Perez are the four that have hit home runs versus him in the past. But with that being said, that's what I do have in terms of the recap, the weather report, the core picks, and the top GPP teams to stack for tonight's slate overall. As always, if you have any questions related to MLB DFS, be sure to leave them down in the comments, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And then, as always, I'll have any other additional updates listed down in the comments below in terms of weather, in terms of starting pitchers, like if somebody gets scratched or anything else like that. We've kind of had that on back-to-back days. 2 days ago was Austin Gomber. Yesterday, it looks like Clevenger was going to start for the White Sox. Then it turned up being Jake Woodford getting the start instead because Clevenger ended up going on the IL with elbow injuries. And then, as always, I'll be listing all the starting lineups as they do get announced throughout the afternoon and early evening. So definitely be on the lookout for all of that. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we have MLB DFS in terms of the core pick videos Monday through Friday. And then once a week, I do put up my UFL DFS video as well. So if that's something you're into, definitely be sure to check that out. Typically, that comes out on Fridays. And then last but not least, if you're interested in prop betting, if you're interested in sports betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Prize Picks, and Parlay Play if you're a brand new user on any one of those three sites. When you sign up, you make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Parlay Play and Prize Picks, it's 100% match up to $100. And then for BetUS, it's 125% match up to $2,500. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. And then with that being said, if you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.